So there you go. We're going to make this session available after the meeting, probably later this afternoon, because it has to be converted. And we will be putting that out on our website, and we'll send a note to everybody about that. Hanaid is on the call with me as well today. Thank you, Hanaid. She, of course, is our resident expert, but I'm going to take a stab at today's training, and she'll fill in the gaps. But also, Hanaid, if you wouldn't mind monitoring the chat line, I'm not real good at chewing gum and walking at the same time, so that would be very, very helpful. Okay, and the last thing that I wanted to mention is if you could put yourselves on mute. I think there might be a way for me to do that, but I don't hear a lot of chatter in the background, so perhaps you already are. But if you do have a question, please take yourself off of mute and ask away, or of course use the chat window. The last question I have is I'm hoping that you can see my screen, and it is showing the 2020 Data Standards Release as a title, and it's got a couple of dates on it, and that's where we are going to start today. And is there anyone who cannot see my screen? I'll take that as a sign people can, and let's get started. All right. So what you see in front of you are the upcoming dates for the 2020 Data Standards Release on Monday, September 30th. Those standards are going to be pushed into our production environments by Caseworthy. They aren't changing any of the data. It's all about the programming and tables and that backend loveliness. They'll probably be doing that in the middle of the night. I don't have an exact time frame. But what we expect is on Tuesday morning when we wake up on October 1st, that all of those data standards are going to be live in our system, and that's going to include both changes to the fields in our HMIS, changes to the APR and the CAPER reports, and the CSV for those reports. There are some back entry changes or requirements that we're calling them that need to be made for active enrollments by the agencies. And as well, there are a handful of things that we at MARC have to do once it goes live. There's no pre-work that we can do until it is live in our system. But we expect to have the work that we need to have done by 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So that's the upcoming timeline. Now, we've been publishing bulletins for the last couple of weeks, kind of outlining what needs to be done and providing some guidance on that. And as well, we have, let me see if I'm going to be good at switching my screen here. Here we go. Also out on our website, just in case you hadn't seen, it's out on the landing page. We have a section here called 2020 HUD Data Standards, and this is where we've provided a link to HUD's documentation. We have an overview, which today's presentation is based on that overview. I've put the slides in a little bit different order, but it's all the same information. And as well, we have it's like a 4-page summary that is a kind of a quick glance to what changes are expected. And as well, we've put together this detailed agency checklist and have asked all of the system admins to look at that, and we've provided guidance on pre-work and post-work that needs to be done by each of the agencies. So this is where you can come and see today's recording once it is available out there. Okay, now let me get back to our deck and let us move forward. Last thing that I wanted to mention is that first we're going to be going through all of the individual elements or fields, if you like, that have been updated. we'll talk about them. In a lot of instances, I'll jump over to our HMIS real quick and show you what they look like. And it's not actually our production HMIS, but a user acceptance testing environment that they live in now. So if you see something on the screen today and expect to see it once you get off the phone and going into the production system, it won't be there. Again, that won't be until Tuesday, October 1st, when they launch. So let's jump right in. And the first one that is changing is the disabling condition. And I don't know if this is going to ring a bell with you, but I know we have seen with a lot of users, they've gone out and through the reporting, they're like, look, I know I've flagged a couple of disabling conditions, HIV/AIDS, developmental disability, but my reporting is not showing correctly. And that is because the information was actually captured in two places. There was the HUD universal assessment, which was kind of a generic yes or no. And then it wasn't until you were in the HUD program assessment that it asked for the very specifics. So you would have to know to keep those two congruent. And of course, at times that can be bothersome and irritating. Well, I am so happy to announce that they've programmatically changed things so that if you go into the universal assessment and let's say you flagged it no, and then you go into the program assessment and you see the very specific items and you change them yes, the system will automatically go back into the HUD universal and change it to yes to match the conditions from the HUD program. So rather than talking about that, let me see if we can pop over and take a quick look. Whoops, sorry. It'll take me a minute to get into the groove of things here. Okay, I'm using, as I mentioned, we're out in our UAT. I'm using a test client ID. And the first thing that I would like to do is go to, let's see, we'll go to the universal. And I'm just going to grab from our test client. Let's take a look at this. And so right now, this test client is set as disabling condition is no. Very good. Let me cancel out of this. Now let's go into the program assessment. And I think this is going to make more sense if you think of it from the workflow perspective of, let's say you're adding someone new and you do go through the universal assessment and then the program assessment. And now let me go ahead and open the program assessment for the same client. And so if you recall, we said no on the first one for disabling conditions, but here it's like, well, wait a minute. This person does have a drug problem and it is expected to be of a long nature. And let's say that they have a mental health condition and is also expected to be of a long-term nature. I'm going to go ahead and hit save here. And then what I'm going to do is go back and show you that that universal assessment should be changed now to yes, which is very exciting. But before we go there and I reveal that excitement, I just wanted to call out one other thing while we were on the screen, and that is two of the additional changes that have been made. I have a slide on them, but I might as well point them out while we're here. Is with the disabling conditions, both the HIV/AIDS and with the developmental disability, they no longer have that subsequent question about the expected duration. If you recall before, every one of these had that same question, but now both the HIV/AIDS and the developmental disability will no longer ask you that. So that's another change. All right, so I'm going to save this. Let's go back to the universal. And now, through the miracle of modern technology, this has been changed from no to yes because it recognized that you or we had identified some disabling conditions. So I'm excited for that change. I hope that made sense and that you're as excited about that one as I am. Okay, so that's the change to the logic for the disabling condition. And when we were out there, I also showed you that for the developmental disability and the HIV/AIDS components of the program assessment, that you are no longer required to have that additional expected field when you say yes to those. So I've covered both of those. All right, so the next change we're going to cover is the destination, which is actually identified in our program data assessment as destination type. And this, of course, is at the exit. And they have made some changes to adding additional information, or options, I should say, and providing some categories to those topics. So let's take a quick look at that change. Let me get out of here. And let's go to the program assessment. Whoops. And now I'm going to go ahead and get into, let's look at Salvation Army this time. And again, keep in mind, Hanny helped with this, and she set up just a bunch of examples using a test client in this UAT, so none of this is in our production system. And we tried to do just kind of across the board section. So let's see here, the destination is part of the exit for program entry, or excuse me, for the program assessment. And so now if we look at destination type, you will see that they have added a handful and have updated the categories for these. So I know it might be kind of hard to see, but this is where, in fact, those changes reside in the system. Let me just get back out of this. Might as well get myself back to here. And let's see if we can come back to. Okay, so next up is the prior living situation. And of course, I guess you could consider this the brother or sister of the destination. And for this one as well, they have changed the wording on some of them, added some additional options, and most importantly, they are removing one of the options, which is called interim housing. And there is a requirement then that once this is live, the ones, if they had in fact listed as interim housing, those needed to be changed to go ahead and select the most appropriate one based on the most current category. And throughout this presentation and on the slides that are available out on our website, you'll see this red box, meaning that there is or potentially could be work for your agency to do as it relates to the changes being made to this element out in HMIS. I'm not going to give us a view of that. It's going to be just a matter of showing again a drop-down list. So I would like to just go ahead and move forward, keep us moving right along. And the next change you will see is for the element domestic violence. Now, the first thing I want to call out is that this change is impacted by any funding components related to PATH or SSVF. So it is for these programs now that the domestic violence question is required, and that will show up then in the HUD program assessment. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so the HUD program assessment, and let's use path. And here it is right at the top, domestic violence victim survivor. You'll notice that it's a required field now. And if the answer is yes, there will be additional fields that are required to be filled out. So that is, again, something that is new for PAT projects and SSVF. Let me just take a quick second there. Am I going too fast, too slow for people? Any feedback thus far? Am I being too monotone? It's Friday afternoon. Okay, I'm just going to move on. All right, the very next change that we are going to cover is the current living situation. And this has to do with changing an element that used to be called contacts, is now called current living situation. And it is one of those changes that is related to specific funded components. So it's any street outreach or coordinated entry coming down the road, HUD ESG, street outreach and emergency shelters, but only those that are night by night, all path projects, and any of the COCU homeless demonstration. And there's a lot of words here. This was actually something that was newer to me. I had not seen it before. So what I'd like to do is just jump right over to the example and we will go from there. Excellent. Okay, so I'm in my test client. And when you come to case management, it's called current living situation. It used to be identified as, I think, contact/services, but now it's current living situation. And this is going to be those times when you have contact with the client. I'm going to go ahead and add a new one. And let's say this was for a path project. And here's that current living situation. And here are the options that are available at this time. I'll go ahead and flag place not meant for habitation. And this field is a text box for you to add additional notes. Looks like at one time I put under the bridge there. Don't know why I did that. And then here is the service type. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that one. You'll notice these are all required fields. When I save that now, that contact is now listed out in our system. And so I think what we have found out when we started looking at this change is perhaps some people had been using case notes to do some of this kind of work. And I think that after the launch and a couple of other things are completed, we're going to go out there and do an assessment to see if there is some work we have to do with a couple of the agencies to make sure that they are using the right elements in the system depending on what work is being completed. Okay, so that is the current living situation. Okay, the next one is also a path. And this is a path status. And what's nice here is that there is the addition of the option unable to locate client. So let's take a look at that. Let me come back here to our assessments. Or excuse me, I keep going to assessments, but not for this one, because this is actually a one-time field. What's taking so long? And I have to tell you guys, I have to be in this special role for right now because of this being in the UAT environment. So sometimes the screens are a little confounding to me. I'm not used to them being in this order. There we go. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we were looking at the path status, the reason they're not enrolled. And let's come here. It's this one-time field. And date of engagement, I'll go ahead and today's date, date of, I'm just going to plug in today's date. And now client became enrolled in path. Let's say the answer is no. Now, the reason not enrolled, you have this additional option now of unable to locate client. So that is a new option available under the reason not enrolled. Okay. Whoops, I went in the wrong direction. Okay, the next one is the sexual orientation, and this is for RHY and YHDP funded projects. And this also has a back entry component to it. The option of selecting other and a text box associated with that other is available now for sexual orientation. And not only will we show that in a minute, but let me go ahead and we'll talk about R6, which is the employment status. And this is for certain VA funded projects. And as well, all the RHY projects except for straight outreach. And now all of these are going to require an employment status on the HUD program. So let's take a look at both of these, the employment status and the sexual orientation. Get out of here. Go to the assessments. Program assessment. And let's choose okay, so if I come down here to sexual orientation and I change it now to this new option, let me make sure you guys can see my screen okay. Other, you'll see that here is a text box where you can enter any additional information you choose about that other sexual orientation. And while we're on the screen, let me show you the employment status, which is just up a couple. And again, this is a newly required field, not only for RHY, but certain VA funded projects. Okay. Okay. In addition to all of this, HUD has provided some clarification in the HUD program data assessment for RHY programs regarding the pregnancy status, and that is the pregnancy status of a female head of household should be collected even if the female is less than 18 years of age. So they must have received a bunch of feedback that was confusing to folks. Okay, these next few fields are related to SSVF, and in fact, additional services are being added to be available for SSVF, and it's going to be extended shallow subsidy, returning home, and rapid resolution are going to be those services that are going to be added. I'm not going to show that right now. They will be out there Monday, but this actually is one of the items that we have to do behind the scenes Monday morning, and that is to map these additional services to the SSVF reporting. It'll just take us a couple of minutes, and then those will be available to you in SSVF, and then once they're mapped, which we'll do Monday morning, they will be available for reporting. So not only is it these additional services here, but these services as well having to do with financial assistance. Same thing, we have to do some behind the scenes mapping, and those should be available Monday morning. I should call out that both of these for SSVF do have a back entry requirement, meaning any active clients as of October 1st will need to have these added if that is a service that is being provided or had previously been provided. Now somebody said, well, how can we go back and add it when it wasn't available before? Why would they have had it? And the answer is, you're probably right, but I'm not sure. There could be a couple of situations where knowing this was coming or becoming available, that it had been provided to the client, and now we just need you to go in and update those records as required. Okay, so now let's move on, and this is a veteran update, and this is again for certain VA funded programs, and they're listed right here. They're all the VA grant per diem programs, and as well as SRS contract residential services and the community contract safe haven program. And what you see here is that now in the HUD program data for projects that have that funding component, there will be a VAMC station number that you will be adding. And for this one, I don't have it live in the system to show you, so I'm just going to share a screenshot. So here it is in the HUD program data. We'll come down and we'll see here SSVF data. It will have this VAMC station number, and it's actually, I think, an identifier, a number and a name. Here's where the number goes. And then there's a drop down for the last permanent address data quality. So that should be available and live on Monday. Okay, let me stop there. Those are all of the fields. Next, we're going to go through changes to the reporting aspects, but let me stop right here and see if we have any questions.
Hey, this is Brooke. I have a question.
Yes, please.
So with the HMIS assessment form that we have, will we be getting a new one from you guys to ask those additional questions?
Oh, on the intake forms?
Correct.
Yes, those are, if you use the standard one provided by us, it is now available out on our website.
Awesome.
Yep, good question.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I know, like you said, with the disabling condition, how that's in 2 places. So my question is with employment, if I mark yes for employment, but then when it comes to the income, if I do not type in like an earned income amount, which is earned income would be employment, is that automatically going to change, or is it going to just show up as an error if I say yes on this side but no on this side?
You know, that's a good thought. It is not changing at this time. I think it's one of those things that if enough people, I guess, reach out to HUD, they'll put that on their radar. So I'm saying no, that will not be different. And I haven't tried it, but we've been provided a documentation both from Caseworthy and HUD to let us know what was changing, and that item was not on there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good question, though. Okay.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
I do have a follow-up question to the new assessment. Am I assuming correctly that we need one for every person in the household, or can we just do the adults?
I'm going to let Hannah Eade respond to that because she took care of making sure that form was updated. So I'm going to reserve my response and let her speak.
Okay.
Oh, and Hannah Eade, you're on mute.
Is it my microphone on? Is this one better? Hello?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you might speak up a little bit. I'll put myself on mute.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
If you could speak just a little bit louder, I only can hear you because I sit next door.
I'm trying to see which mic setting my computer is in, so I'm not sure if everyone can hear me or not.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead and take the response and I can repeat it if I want.
Right, so what I would say is in the intake form, we just updated the fields, not the process. Depending on your program, whether or not you're enrolling the whole family, and it's up to the agencies if they want to have paper copies. But the way it's entered in HMIS will be the same.
Okay, so let me repeat that. What Handy is saying is they've updated those intake forms to match the new fields. They did not change the process to do that, and that actually is could be vary from agency to agency. So, however your agency has been doing it, you would move forward in that way. I do know that I believe that form has a place for the head of household to sign off for the children, but it's however your agency has been doing it. Does that help?
Yes, that helps me. Thank you.
All right. Very good. And I'm taking a quick look at the clock, and we're halfway through, which I think we're doing great on time. And now I'd like to get into these APR CAPER updates. And let me just make sure I'm moving forward. Okay. So the first change that you're going to see is the Q4 project identifier. And this is actually the very first thing that you see when you pull up a report. And it just talks about, what is the program and some other elements. And what used to be very awkward is if, in fact, you tried to run an APR on multiple programs, the report did not handle that very well. And now, in fact, it handles it quite well. So let me take you over there and let's take a look at that one. Oh, and I think I actually, yep, here you go. I went ahead and pre-ran some reports just to save us some time. And so this is the Q4 where they've blown it out. In this example, I just went through and selected a handful of emergency shelter programs. And you can see that this table now shows each and every program that is in the report, what org they're from, some other identifying information. And so this is wonderful. I love it. Now, I do have to caution you about one item, and that is when you go to select this report, let me just do that real quick. I think you'll all know what I'm talking about. Let me come here, reporting, compliance, 2020 APR. I want to make sure that when you go and select the report, and let me just grab this one, that you are in fact using the organization button to select your org. Typically, it's just MARC that is running the reports where there's multiple orgs. So please make sure that you're using org and then select your org, because the report does not distinguish, or there's no way for it to understand, what is the main agency. And for most all of the projects that we have in HMIS right now, there's an entry in the org field for the agency itself, for MARC, and sometimes for the COC. And so what you'll see is a report that shows all of this. In some instances would be duplicated or replicated in that it would have the same program name, same program ID, but the org name would be listed different. So it lists it for every org that is identified with that program. So to eliminate that situation, please go out to the report parameter and select your agency as the only organization for these reports. So it's a nice feature, but and I think some agencies are in the habit of doing it, and maybe it's just me because oftentimes I'm looking at multiple agencies at a time, and so when I first saw that, I kind of freaked out a little. I'm like, what's going on? Okay, that's Q4. Now we're going to jump forward to Q7A and Q7B, and what they have done here is added a row for just PSH and RRH, showing the total persons served who moved into housing. And for 7B, the point in time count reflects the total of all persons in the project where the head of household had moved into the date on or before the last Wednesday of those time periods that it selects for the reporting. And again, that's for PSH and RRH. And I'll show you an example of that, but while we're here, let me just, whoops, where'd it go? I also want to show you Q8A, and so let's go out and jump straight into Q8A, and actually what that is talking about is the number of households served. It added a row there for the total households who moved into housing. So let's look at those three together. Holy guacamole. Okay, which report is this one? Oh, good, perfect, Rapid 3000. Okay, so this is the Q4. I'm going to go to the next page. And we see Q7A. They've added this here, this in the dark band here about the PSH and RRH, total person served who moved into housing. For that 7B, again, that is more of a clarification of who's going to be included in it. And then let's just jump down to 8A, the household served. Again, they've added this bar of identifying households who've moved into housing for PSH and RRH. So that is an example of those three. Let's go back here. Okay, next up is this Q9AB. And this is about the contacts and engagement sections and the options, the responses available on the report have been now tied to match the updates to the elements of the current living situation. And let's take a look while we're here is the current living situation, which is Q15. This is another one we'll look at. And this, again, is something that has been updated to match or to correlate with the data standard updates that have taken place. And again, what you're not going to see is that interim housing because it has been removed. So let's come over to reporting. Oh, sorry, I grabbed the wrong report. Let's get out of that one for now. Okay, for this one, let's look at the path report. And I ran it just on one page. And let's go straight to the Q9A and B. And that's just going to be on page 3, I think. Whoops, I grabbed the wrong one. 9A and B. So you can see that these changes are reflected up here in these titles. And then if we go on to look at the Q15 for the living situation, I think that's moved forward a couple of pages. Let's see. Oh, I went not quite far enough. Here we go. Okay, so here is that living situation at project start. I know you didn't get a chance to study those updates that have been made here, but you definitely see no interim housing, and all of these have been updated to match the additional elections that are available for those fields. Okay, let me come back here. Okay, 23C, 25I, 27F. They all have to do with exit destination. 23C is the main exit destination. You find it under the hyperlink number 2 in the reporting. The Q25I is actually related to the veterans exit destination, and 27F is the exit definition. Excuse me, and bless you. And again, the options that are going to show up for those exit destinations have been updated to match what is available now in those fields. And I won't show that, it's probably getting kind of boring. Okay, there have been a handful of other items that have been updated. A big one is the data quality, Q2. And now there is a total column that has been added to that information so that you can have a total count for clients that are missing any of the PII fields. Q8A we looked at a little bit earlier, number of households served. Q13 is actually an update for the physical and mental health conditions, and what they've done there is to split the households with children into 2 separate columns. And let me just show you that one. Oh my gosh, I have a brain cramp. Oh yeah, Q13, sorry. Okay, so here they have it. They've split this out, adults in households with children and adults, and then children in households with children and adults. So they've kind of split that out. Okay, whoops, let me come back to my deck here. Q17, cash income sources. There was some clarification provided. As far as determining whether income is known or not known for income sources. For 19A3, it was removed, and what that was related to is there was a client cash income change, income source, and they had that by start and latest status and exit date. They have removed that now. And I believe it's been replaced, and I think we'll see that on the next page. Okay, 19B is the disabling condition income for adults at exit, and this is a new section on the report for the adult leavers with known income and disabling condition information. And let me just go and show you that real quick. And that is 19B, so we've got to jump forward a couple. Let me see if this gets us there. 19B, here it is. Okay, so this is an entirely new section. Of course, I didn't grab a report that has data in it, but it's the disabling condition and income for adults at exit. All right, we have one additional page. I think this is our last page for reporting updates. It is. And the first one is the Q20B, which is the number of non-cash benefits sources. And it has a row header now that says data not collected, or they had not stayed long enough for it to be collected. Take a quick look at that. Oops, there's me. Here it is, data not collected, or they've not stayed long enough for the annual assessment. So that's an additional row that has been added to this section of the report. Let's come back to the PowerPoint. Whoops, sorry, I went too fast. Okay, Q22C is length of time between project start and housing move-in date, and there was some clarification for the application regarding the housing move-in date to household members. So if the household members are already in the household, when the head of household moves into the housing, they have that at the date is the same time. But for household members that join the household after they've already been housed, then that person will have the project start date as their housing move-in date. And then likewise for Q22E, length of time prior to housing, there has been clarification to this field as well. And it is going to be based on the response to the date homelessness started, which we showed earlier in that 3.917 field. And then Q23 to Q23B is exit destinations. And it used to be at 23A was more than 90 days, 23B was less than 90 days on the APR. And now it's just going to show 23C. It's going to be used for both the APR and the CAPER and updated with the standard response options that are available. Okay, that was a handful. I'm going to stop there. Are there any questions on the APR? I should say APR CAPER. Okay, I'm just going to move forward to this next slide. There was a question earlier about this. We do have our HMIS intake form has been updated and it is available now. I know this says you can begin to use it on October 1st. Great if you want to go and grab it now, print it off, however you use it. It has been updated and is live as we speak. And we have provided prior guidance that for anybody who has a customized intake form that needs to be updated so that it can be used starting on October 1st. And we have not heard from any of the agencies for some help on that, and hopefully everybody is ahead of the game and we're going to be covered. And did someone have a question?
I do have a question real quick. This is Brooke. So on this form, on all of the other clients that are already in, is this going to show up as data not collected? So we need to go back into every single client's file and answer these questions?
No. Good question. And I'm going to quickly, I hope this doesn't hurt your eyes. The only place that you're going to need to be concerned are any of these fields where we've identified what's called a back entry requirement. And typically it's going to be for someone to run an APR of the active client starting on October 1st. And so in this instance, you would only need to go and add this if it were needed to be added for active clients. Most of them are active clients as of October 1st. The only field that did need you to dig a bit deeper, and I wish I knew where it was in the, let me find it real quick. This interim housing for prior living situation, we had provided guidance that the agency should run APRs for all of their projects to see if they had any interim housing. And if they did, that definitely would need to be changed. But that's just a matter of identifying those clients who had interim housing listed as their living situation, because that would no longer be a valid response.
Okay.
So other than that,
all right, thank you.
You should be fine. Yeah. And
okay.
I think that's it. I hope that helps. Okay.
It did. Thank you, Sherry.
Any other questions? Okay, so we do have 10 minutes left, and I wanted to just quickly step through a small handful of fields that we're calling for your reference, FYR. I made that up because I felt FYI might lend too much importance to it. So this is supposed to be a rung on the ladder lower. So it's really, hey, just wanted to let you know, right? But these are fields that are changing, and I would consider them more of a behind the scenes kind of change, and meaning that those are things that we as your HMIS administration will take care of. We will be adding some additional fields to the form where you request a new project. We have a form you fill out now. It might make a couple of tweaks there, just additional information you need to provide to us so we can set your programs up right. But other than that, there isn't anything for you to necessarily do. And the reason why a lot of these changes are being made is, with the release of the LSA reporting last year and all of the analysis and everything that's been done, and all of the work that you all helped us to do, and all of the work we had to do to get ready for it, it was recognized that some of the fields perhaps needed to be changed, and that they were more accurately representing the information that is contained in the system. But again, I want you to know that this isn't anything that you have to concern yourself with. It is something that I wanted you to have an awareness of, and that we are addressing those situations on the back end. So let me just zip through these real quick. And one of them is the victim service provider. It used to be at the project level, but now it's going to be required at the org level. So that's kind of a huge change. The next one has to do with HMIS participating project, which is kind of a funky thing, right? If you haven't heard us talk about it, with the LSA and I think HUD overall getting to the spot where HMIS is the de facto go-to source for all information related to homelessness. Last year, we had to start entering a shell for projects that were not being tracked under HMIS. So we had to have the project out there and had to have the number of beds and everything, but no records were being added, no enrollments, no clients. And so that was kind of tricky because they would be out there and we just happened to arbitrarily know, not arbitrary, we happen to know which ones were participating and which were not. But now they are going through and making it easier for us to identify those projects. So that's what that one is about. There's been a change to housing type. It used to be at the HMS provider level, and now that's going to be set at the project level. Geography type is an interesting change, and the geography type will now be updated. I'd not heard of the word crosswalk before, but HUD has this cross-reference table of zip codes and geography types, and every night Caseworthy is going to run a batch process that's going to update geography types based on this crosswalk of zip codes. So that's a change coming for us. And funding sources for federal funding components. This has been a couple of additions, namely the VA grant per diem for case management, housing, and retention, the joint THRRH, which we do have one of in our HMIS, and another one is for local funding sources. And the one for local funding sources is nice because it's just a generic field, but then there's going to be a text box so that you can talk or identify exactly what is it for, which is nice for us because, we have the MHDC, we have KC-Mo, we have Johnson County. So that'll be nice that we can more accurately identify those projects. And as well, they are removing one of the funding components, and that is the VA compensated work therapy transitional residents. And I don't believe we have any of those, but if in fact we did, they're going to programmatically change that to be one of the local or other funding sources instead. Okay, bed and unit inventory, there's going to be additional a category added for special populations, and that population is going to include chronic veterans, other veterans, chronic youth, other chronic, and non-dedicated. So those are some additional bed and unit inventory categories that are going to be made available. And I think this is the last one, and this is the HMIS inventory only. And this is also related to LSA from that perspective of we have non-HMIS participating projects in our system, and to make it easier for us to distinguish those, they're adding an HMIS inventory only element so that we can more easily track the bed and usage information in the system. Okay, and that's it for those special fields. So let me just stop there. See, are there any questions? I think so far Brooke wins the prize for asking the best questions. Or I should say the most questions. They've all been good questions.
I'll pick up my prize later.
Yeah, okay, good. We'll have it at the front desk here. I hope a keg fits in your car. Okay, so let me just recap again. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Make sure you go out to the website, and on the landing page, there is that whole section with information. Soon we'll have today's recording out there. And along with that, what I've been sharing on the screen is actually available as, it's called an overview presentation. It has most of the same slides. And what I didn't show here is that in that overview presentation itself, I have screenshots of a lot of the stuff that we looked at live. So that's going to be one little difference. If you have not been receiving the bulletins that we've been sending out, I think it's over the last couple of weeks, those go to primarily the system admins for agencies. We ask them to forward those to case managers and others as needed. If you haven't seen one yet, again, reach out to us. We would like to make sure that you're aware of these changes that are coming. And I've asked, because this is my first go around and Haniad's first go around with implementing HUD data standard updates. And I was like, gosh, is this huge or little or I don't know. And they were like, no, these are actually pretty straightforward, and it's not a major release, but it's a good release. So we're hoping that everything goes smoothly next week. I know we are waiting for Caseworthy to finalize a couple of things in the system. They assure us that everything's going to be ready. So don't want anybody to lose any sleep over the weekend or on Monday night. We'll take care of that for you. And let's see, Haniad, is there anything else I should remind folks of?
Can we go to the website just to go over where this information is
Perfect. Yep,
located?
I gotta wrap my brain around where to go. Hold on, I'm not very good at this. Here we go. Come here. Here it is. So yeah, here's the kind of the landing page for KC Metro HMIS, and it is this section right here, 2020 HUD data standards. And this is where we will add today's presentation.
Sweet, and I just wanted to say, so Caseworthy is planning on, so Cher was using one of our tests, our UAT, our test environment, so it's not in your production environment yet. Their goal is to upload it, I think Monday at around midnight, so around 11 p.m. or so. that's when they're gonna start loading this into production. So that means that we have to wait until Tuesday morning, unless Sherry and I are awake at around 2. I think it'll take them about 2 to 4. It'll take Caseworthy about 2 to 4 hours to upload all of that. Then Tuesday morning, that's when we can go in there. And as you saw, like she had a CAPER that was a 2020 CAPER, APR, 2020 APR. So all of those are still not available to us in our production site. So we're hoping that by Tuesday morning they're ready to roll. We'll upload them to your roles so you can have access to them. Regarding the 2019 APR, or I think it's 2018 that's there, we're going to keep those. Although they're not valid in Sage. So if you try to upload any of these into Sage after October 1, it will reject it. You'll have to use the 2020, but we'll leave them there for your reference. So we might put a section where it says archive just to keep them there so that you don't worry, but also that you don't use the wrong ones. So we'll put like an archive section to separate those two categories. And the good part, like Sherry said, is that the items to users are luckily not that large. I think most of the work is going to be behind the scenes. So programming services and updating project and program setup. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this, I hope. So yeah, let us know, and we'll send you definitely a new bulletin once. So if you haven't received any, let us know so we can add you to the list. But once we make these changes to the reports, once the APRs are uploaded, we'll send you out a notice saying that it's good to go so you can check it out.
Awesome. And the one thing that I didn't mention yet at all, and that is next week, starting on Tuesday? We are going to have what we're calling a hotline open from 2 to 5 p.m. every day. It's just a go-to-meeting that we're going to be on the entire time. So that first week, if you come across something and you're confused by it, or it doesn't make sense to you, you can just jump on the go-to-meeting and you can get us right on the phone there. And as a matter of fact, we even have Caseworthy coming on for a little bit on Wednesday, just in case there are any major items to be addressed we don't expect there to be. So just a reminder that we will have a hotline open next week, and I believe it's Tuesday through Friday from 2 to 5. And we hope we're bored to tears from that time. But if you have any questions or concerns whatsoever, definitely jump on and let us help you. Great thing about GoToMeeting is we can not only talk, but we can also share and look at the actual live data itself. All right, with that, we've got 3 minutes over. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions, and hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and we will talk to you very soon. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.